Greetings everyone, Glenn Kellaway from the basement back with another video. Yesterday I uploaded a video showing 3 albums that I picked up from my contest winnings from Richard McCook's channel. Thank you, Richard, so much. All jazz titles. That has motivated me to make this video, which I've been planning for a while, ranking my top 12 favorite jazz albums. So let's get started, and then I'll ramble on a little bit as we're doing this. First of all, I want to give an honorable mention. I didn't rank it, but I'll tell you, if I should have ranked it in there already, because I'm blown away by this album. This is one of the ones I picked up yesterday. Something Else, Cannonball Adderley. Wow. This album is going to be in my top 5 for sure next time I rank jazz albums. Absolutely brilliant album. I absolutely love it. If you like Miles Davis kind of blue, you'll love this album. It's just incredible. I'm mind blown how I wasn't aware of that album. Okay, number 12 on my list is kind of a whacked out jazz album. It's from a band I discovered when Larry Graves and I did a chat, and the great legend Arthur Brown joined us. And we asked Arthur what he was listening to, and he mentioned a band called The Comet Is Coming. I wrote down the name, did some investigation, found out they were part of the UK jazz scene out of London, and I fell in love with these guys. I bought all they got like 4 albums, I think, 3 albums and an EP or something. I've got them all. This is the only one I don't have on vinyl. I'm gonna grab it because this is my favorite. And this is The Comet Is Coming, Channel the Spirits, and plus there was an EP called Prophecy, which is included here. So this is like a 2 CD set. It's keyboards, which is mostly synthesizer, drums, and saxophone. And boy, can these guys make a racket. And it's good. I love this stuff. It's great. The Comet Is Coming. And they all have great covers on their albums. I don't know if they show the inside jacket. Fantastic to listen to. Check it out. That's kind of an obscure jazz title, but number 11 on my list would be, I'm going to move my list over here. I have a bit of trouble with John Coltrane. I am really trying to get into Love Supreme, which is considered one of the greatest jazz albums of all time. Some people say it's a masterpiece. I've always had a bit of trouble with it. I'm not one of those guys who likes a jazz player to, like, how many notes can I play in a second? You know, like that doesn't impress me. I need the musicality. I think I know that is pretty difficult to do what they do, but still. Anyway, but one album from John Coltrane that I love is Blue Train. Now, this one is much more accessible to me. It's probably, if John Coltrane had an album that's most like baby, like kind of just to get you dipping your toe into the John Coltrane albums, this is probably the one. I mean, he's such a great player. And this is on Blue Note. Just an excellent record. Sounds fantastic. That's my number 11. My number 10 is an artist that I discovered when I went to see Martin Barre from Jethro Tull in a little club in Toronto, and I was sitting beside this guy and we started chatting about music, and he told me he was going to see this artist called Hiromi the next night, and I had no idea what the hell he was talking about, and I wrote the name down and checked her out, and checked her out on YouTube and saw this energetic performer from Japan. Chick Corea and Jerry Lee Lewis have a baby, and its name is Hiromi. This is her album, Alive, probably my favorite. The Trio Project featuring Anthony Jackson and Simon Phillips. This is just great playing. Drums, bass, piano, but really, really, man, this gets you jumping, man. It's great. She's awesome. I just love this woman so much. Hiromi, Alive. Number 10. That was number 10. Number 9. From a set that I bought recently, Charles Mingus, who's one of my favorite artists. You'll see another one of his albums come up further up down the road here. But I discovered this album in the box set that I recently bought, Charles Mingus 3 or 4 Shades of Blues. Man, this is a jazz blues album. It is fantastic. I absolutely love this album so much. He does some of the stuff from that he's most famous for on here too. Better Get Hit in Your Soul, Goodbye Pork Pie Hat, Nobody Knows, all selections composed by Charles Mingus. Great record. It's a great set if you are looking for something that just came out recently. It's all these Atlantic recordings from the 70s. Okay, what's next? At number 8. So I have to tell you, when back in the 70s, when I got heavy into bluegrass music, a lot of the people I were listening to were heavy into jazz and starting to incorporate jazz into their playing, and that's what piqued my interest in bluegrass. 2 people in particular, David Grisman and Bela Fleck. Now, David Grisman was already, I think, a name known to some rock audience, especially if you're a Grateful Dead fan, because he played with Jerry Garcia in the band Old and in the Way, and he also played mandolin on Grateful Dead record on American Beauty, and he eventually hit the David Grisman Quintet, eventually added the great Stephen Grappelli to his band. This is an awesome album. Stephen Grappelli, David Grisman live. I didn't rank it, but this is, one of the albums that really inspired me to get into jazz. That's why I wanted to mention it. The other artist, Bela Fleck, 1979, at 19 years of age. Bela, I think he was 19, maybe 18. Bela did his first solo album called Crossing the Tracks, and on it he did a cover of Chick Corea's Spain on the banjo, and it blew me away. That was the one defining moment that got me hooked on jumping down the rabbit hole of jazz. That's it. Bela Fleck, Spain. Listen to that on Spotify, maybe on YouTube if you can find it. Fantastic. Bela's done albums with Marcus Roberts Trio. Great friends with Chick Corea. I mean, you can't get a bigger name than that in jazz. Chick and Bela did tours together, did albums together. Here's an album called Two, which is just piano and banjo. It's incredible. So thanks, Bela, for helping me along my way. Then I talked to a guy who I met who said he was heavy into jazz when we started about music. I said, where do I start? And he said, Kinda Blue, Miles Davis. So I picked that up. Kind of dug it a little bit. It takes time. And then I went on the internet. This would be in the 90s when I really got, by this time, I'm very curious, and that's when I asked about the Miles Davis thing, and then I went on the internet and I did a Google search on the greatest jazz albums of all time, looked at the top 10, wrote them down, and bought a few of them. So the usual culprits were there: A Love Supreme, Kind of Blue, Charles Mingus was on there. You know, if you're a jazz fan, you know the albums. And this album was on there. Oscar Peterson. Well, Canadian guy. I'll check this out. So I loved it. It's like really just great. The piano, I mean, he's just incredible musician and a great trio. Fell in love with Oscar, got quite a few of his things. Got a chance to get Oscar to autograph the Night Train CD for me. So, best wishes, Oscar Peterson. Prized possession. Okay, next. Love this album. Came out, the dates on here, 2015. Modern jazz. This guy can blow a saxophone. This is one of the great, this is not only just a great sax album, but if I was listing my top 50 albums of all time, including all genres, this would be in it. Kamasi Washington, The Epic. I'm dying to get this on vinyl, but just to spend the $60. Triple album set. Fantastic playing. This guy's like, he's street and hip. He's like, he was hanging out with like Kendrick Lamar. And this album is just fantastic. It's, how do you describe it? It's kind of gospel-y in a way or something. He's just got that kind of spiritual sound to him. And such a great player. There's a couple of songs that are vocal performances on here. But there's so many people in here. There's a lot of choral, like a choir kind of a vocally thing going on, but it's such an interesting album. And Kamasi Washington, I got a chance to go see him in a club in Toronto called the Danforth Music Hall when he was promoting this album, and I absolutely loved the show. My wife hated it, but I loved it. Another one of those shows I dragged her to that she always reminds me of. Number 6. Talked about this already. It was on that top 10 list. Every top 10 list you're going to look up, greatest jazz albums of all time, this is on it. Charles Mingus, I don't have this on vinyl. Another one that's on my to-do list. And just a great, great, great jazz album. I mean, Mingus is, man, just genius. Again, very soulful and bluesy and interesting, quirky but not quirky. It's just, this album is fantastic. Okay, number 5. Considered the greatest jazz album of all time. I think it's the biggest selling jazz album of all time. It's just a masterpiece of an album. It just works. Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, from 1959, I think I was reminded yesterday when I said 57. Cannonball Adderley is on here, which is, he played on, Miles played on his album that I showed earlier, something else. Paul Chambers, James Cobb, John Coltrane, Bill Evans, and Wynton Kelly. I mean, wow, what a record. So What, classic song. This album is just magic. It's one of those albums that just works. It's magic. Number 4. Okay, kind of an obscure jazz album, but hey, it was up for Jazz Album of the Year for the Grammys in 1993, I think. I think it won a jazz poll in Playboy magazine, which used to have a pretty reputable reputation for jazz music, besides other stuff. Bale Fleck and the Flecktones, Flight of the Cosmic Hippo, Try and find this on vinyl. I dare you. Incredible record. Warner Brothers. Check this one out, man. Check it out. Blow your mind. Number 3. We come back with more Miles. My favorite Miles album, and this is his kind of rock fusion period. John McLaughlin just shines on this album on guitar. There's only 2 songs on the album, one on one side, one on the other, and it is Jack Johnson, a tribute to Jack Johnson. Wow, I just freaking love this album. Absolutely love it. If you are not into jazz, but you like rock and you like, just check this one out. Jack Johnson. Number 2, an album I just discovered a couple of weeks ago. This could be my number 1. I'm telling you, it was like hearing the greatest album of all time all of a sudden, like you hearing it for the first time. I have played this album in the last 2 to 3 weeks since I got it, thanks to Larry Graves and our CD exchange. I think I've played it 100 frickin' times. I'm telling you. Alice Coltrane, Journey in Satchidananda. Man, I feel like Larry Graves trying to pronounce a word there. With Pharoah Sanders. I just love this album. I love East Indian music, and this is a lot of influence in that sound with Alice, and great jazz pianist, harpist. I mean, this album just works for me. Every note of it, I absolutely love it, love it, love it. Man, I can't say enough about that record. What's number 1? Number 1 is an album I showed yesterday that I just picked up on CD because I'd sold my SACD. The Amazing Patricia Barber, Cafe Blue. I mean, after I did my video yesterday and put that CD on, I just went, oh man, this album is just, I absolutely love this album. This is not an album I should like. I don't want to say it's croonerish because it's not, but kind of in a way. Her voice is kind of sultry, I guess, but it's just the guitar in this album is almost psychedelic, and the percussion is, I wish I had the words to describe it, but every note of this album is so interesting. The vocal performances are great. The instrumental passages are interesting. The whole album is just interesting, beautifully recorded. It sounds so nice that I think even if you didn't like this album, you'd sit back going, man, that sounds good. Like, it's just a magical album for me. Cafe Blue, number 1. That's my countdown. For you jazz fans, let me know. For you guys who hate jazz, I hope maybe you'll pick 1 or 2 of those titles and check them out. And thanks for watching. Please subscribe. I'm so close. 2,000. I'm so close. And thumbs and all that stuff. We'll be back.